So how can you tell when apples are ready to harvest? Well, different apples will ripen and mature at different times. I've got several different varieties in my garden, like this variety of Spartan, and I find that if you check in the catalogues and so on, but you'll find around about perhaps September into October is apple harvest time. Some varieties will ripen a little bit earlier. I've got an Ellison's orange which ripens up, probably one of the first ones in my garden as we move through September, and that can be picked and eaten fresh from the tree. Others need to be picked and possibly stored for a while so that their flavour develops. Spartan is one of my favourite eating apples. Ripens up September into early October. Great eaten fresh from the tree. The red skin polishes up beautifully and takes on a blue sheen. You can just brush off the white bloom on the surface and get a beautiful red skinned apple, and flesh is white, pure white, crisp and juicy. So this is a really superb eating apple, and one thoroughly recommend. You can use them for cooking if you want, but I tend to use them for eating or for juicing, turning this delicious apple into some lovely fresh fruit juice. Now sometimes you'll notice that fruits have actually fallen on the ground. That can sometimes be an indication that the apples are ready to harvest, but also it can be an indication that the apples have been infected by something like codling moth caterpillars. And if you cut into the apple itself, you'll find the little maggots of the codling moth inside. The fruit has fallen really before it's ready to eat, and with the infection of the codling moth, probably you wouldn't want to eat it anyway. This was one of my apple windfalls, and as you can see, it had got a mark in the skin there, a little mark that looks like something's been eating into it, and when I cut it open I can see inside that there's a codling moth had dug its way in and eaten through to the centre of the fruit itself, and that's why that apple had fallen off the tree. Got another apple here, and again this has got a little mark on the skin, and I'm going to cut into this just see what we've got inside again. Yep, you can see the track there of where the moth had come in, and obviously the apple started rotting in places and the birds will start picking away. So these early windfalls may be an indication that the apples are ripe and ready, but it could well also show you that these apples would never reach maturity. They've fallen off the tree's discarded them because they really aren't fit to eat. If you have found codling moth caterpillars are a problem in your fruits, then next year consider using an organic gardening approach to try and control these infestations. I hang a pheromone trap in my apple trees around about May into June time, and that trap has got a lure, a pheromone fragrance of the female codling moth, and it attracts the males to the trap, and when they fly inside they get stuck to the glue cards inside, come to a sticky end. So if the males have been trapped, hopefully they haven't had a chance to mate with any female codling moths, and therefore the females will be infertile and they won't be laying any eggs. And that's one organic method for trying to stop the moths laying eggs and the little maggots eating inside your apple crops. Yes, this is Ellison's orange, one of my favourite early ripening eating apples. Certainly the first to ripen in my garden here in the East Midlands. I'm finding probably as we move through late August and into early September, these are ready to pick. At the moment I'm towards the end of August, and just to see if they're ripe, I just tend to lift a fruit and see if it comes away, and if it does come away easily, then I know that this apple is ready, and I can eat these straight away. Beautiful sweet apple, doesn't tend to store well, this variety, Ellison's orange. It's one that you really need to pick and eat straight away. So it'll keep for a few weeks, keep the apple somewhere cool, And you can even put them in the bottom of the fridge if you want, in a salad drawer at the bottom of the fridge. And these can be eaten probably through September and October, but don't keep them any longer. They go a little bit pappy, the flesh goes a bit soft, it loses its crispness. Otherwise, eaten straight from the tree. Ellison's orange is an absolutely delicious eating apple. And that's the nice thing about eating apples. If you do end up with a surplus, too many to eat, then you can juice them. And I've got one of these juicers that I just chop up the apples. You push the chopped up pieces in the top. It goes down into the juicer, which squeezes the apple and separates the skin and the flesh from the juice. Collects all the pulp in one side and the juice at the other. So if you're lucky enough to have a glut of apples, don't waste them. You can certainly eat them or use them for making delicious fruit juice. Now, pears ripen slightly differently to apples. I've got a really good crop here on my pear tree. This is a variety called Concorde that was bred as a cross between Conference and Commis. It's a really, really tasty pear, but you can't wait until the fruits have actually ripened on the tree. Usually you've got to harvest them probably around about October time in my garden. Pick them off. Usually if you hold the fruit underneath, you can lift it and it will pull away. Harvest the fruits and then store them for a few weeks till they're ripe and ready to eat. I tend to store them in a cool place and gradually move one or two fruits at a time into the kitchen so it's a little bit warmer, and these fruits will gradually ripen up. You can just give them a little squeeze each day around where the stalk joins the fruit and see if they've got soft, and then try them. So don't wait until they're ripe, but they take a little bit longer, I find, than apples to ripen. So I've harvested most of my apples through September, maybe early October, and then my pears I'm waiting till probably early October to pick them and then store them and ripen them up as I want to eat them through October and November and into December. And of course it's always worth leaving a few apple windfalls on the ground for the wildlife, for the birds to peck away at. Just gives them a little bit of extra food through the autumn months. Do have to be on the lookout though, because sometimes those damaged fruits can attract wasps, so do be careful about those. If wasps are around, then perhaps carefully collect up the fallen apples and put them on your compost heap instead. But otherwise, a few windfall apples left on the ground can be a tasty treat for birds to enjoy.